Okay, I'm Larry Huntley, and I've been doing fabric covering for 50 years off and on. And since back in the early 2000s, I was starting to have phone problems, and I could see what was happening and no more of that. So I decided to go to a water-based process, which back at that time, and try not to get deep into this, but there's a process called the Blue River process. You've heard of it? Okay, you're probably younger than I am. I'm 83, so that happens. Bob Neer developed the Blue River system, and it didn't really make it. I covered one airplane with it. It was fine, but a lot of people had a lot of trouble with it. And the company was bought out after Bob died by an outfit called Aircraft Finishing Systems in Idaho. He was a fire pilot, she was a chemist. And she took the 2-part glue he was using and made it 1-part waterborne. He took the Eco-Fill, which is the second chemical we use, and kept the same. It's got the same product as her glue, as I understand it, and it has very, very finely powdered charcoal in it. That's the UV blocker, instead of using silver. The third product, she threw out his finished product completely and developed Eco-Poly, which is a 2-part urethane, but it's waterborne, so it's not toxic and there are no fumes from it. One really nice thing about this process is there's no odor. The finished coat has a little odor, but if I'm spraying in one room, you wouldn't be able to smell me in the other room. Anyway, Doug and Dan Stewart were Aircraft Finishing Systems only distributor, and they were in Kashmir, Washington. I got to know them, Short-Wing Piper Club or something. And they were working with these people's product, and the people are getting burned out on it, so they bought them out, and that's why it's Stewart Systems. And I'm not supposed to advertise with our program here, but I'm not advertising, I'm just telling you what I use. It would apply to any water-based waterborne program, I suppose, but I don't know of any other one. So, as I said, there's no odor with it. There's, pros and cons. One big deal is I went to some of the other companies that asked for estimates. And what I got was from this outfit to cover a set of J3 wings. That's a good place to start. The actual product cover, excluding finish, was $1,450 for a set of wings, materials. The Cub Yellow Eco-Poly brought it up to $2,100. I called Polyfiber and asked for an estimate, immediately got back an estimate. Materials for J3 2 wings in the area of $3,000. So this company's products are expensive, but you don't use much. If you cover with dope, you're going to be shipping for a set of J3 wings. I bet it would take 15 gallons of thinner, and you're going to ship that from San Bernardino, hazmat. All of this material, all of these chemicals go in the mail, and you can drink the thinner. You buy distilled water at Walmart for $2 a gallon, that's your thinner. And you don't use very much of it. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, another big advantage of this is you got an airplane and you got a problem, you got to patch something, you got to use the same product, right? So if it was made with dope, you gotta go back and do a dope, no. If you have a plane that's been covered with dope or poly or anything else, you can cover with this. You can cover over any product with Stewart's legally. That's worth it quite a bit. Now, I set this up, maybe this won't work, or maybe it isn't, but don't fire me at it. I put one side on this, and I put glue around Eco Bond around the whole thing and let it dry. And I'm gonna do this. Heat tends to make this stick better. And it doesn't take much heat. Just the heat of my fingers rubbing it's gonna help. I'd be taking a little bit more time with it if I was in the shop and everything. We're not gonna get too fancy here. That's not gonna work very well. Yeah. Now, you can see some of the stock. If it had just been done a half an hour ago, that would be sticking there. However, I've got an iron set at 250. See if it calls me a liar. Hey, that's staying there. And get that back down and take a good look at, whoop, a wrinkle here. You won't do that with polyfiber. When you get this absolutely and exactly where you want it, this is going to be good enough for me. Now, that's going to stay there. Yeah, I need my bucket. This is handy for, this is Eco Bond glue. We use chip brushes. You can find all kinds of stuff, but I hate to push this too much, but chip brushes with pure bristles work best. You can buy these are the 59-cent throwaways. But after you get done using them, wipe them out, stick them in a cup of water, and leave them there for a week, go back and use them. They work well. When I started out, I was using a reasonably decent brush, and I was having trouble because I was leaving bristles all over the place. Scott, blue shop towels. No. Those things will stick in the glue and you'll have crap all over the place. This, just go like this. I'm pushing it through the fabric as well as wiping off the excess. And I got some little wrinkles here, but it's not a problem. I'll be able to iron them out. I'm gonna put this on here like this and we're gonna set it aside and let it dry. And this glue can be, if you have reason to want to, it can be watered down a little bit. I won't go more than 10%, but there.
What's the shelf life once you open the bottle for the glue?
Forever, as far as I know. I just finished a bottle that I brought down here 5 years ago. So, just finishing open this one. So, let's see. I'm just gonna set this out of the way. Water hit right here or not?
I can get you some. How much do you need? You need like a cup full?
Actually, just need that wet.
No, that's it. All right, I'll go with it.
Once everything is on and all glued down and done and shrunk, normally shrunk to 350 degrees. I have a bigger iron that I use, for shrinking it. This tacking iron works well for working with it. But for those of you who has used dope, you know what happens if you put a drop of dope on your fabric?
Yeah.
About 5 years from now, you go out and you got a little pucker in your fabric because it keeps shrinking.
Here's an extra one.
Yes, that's good. That's all I need. Pass it over me. I'm trying to save my brush. I will take this brush and put it in a cup of water. I use the same brush for 4 or 5 or more sessions, so they last a while. If you put dope or some other, even non-tautening dope, leave a gob like that on a wing or something, it will pucker and it will really show up. If you're just flying the airplane, you don't care. But if you're taking it to Oshkosh, they care. So with this, I dropped this on here intentionally. I didn't rub it in. Had I rubbed it in, it would be there permanently. But it would just peel at the surface of the fabric, and this does not tighten your fabric, so you don't have to worry about it. Let's see. Next step of this, of course, to iron everything down and get everything the way you want it. And then you put on these finish tapes. Now, these are real narrow on these tail feathers. On a Piper wing, they're 1/2 inch wide tape. I use a lot of super flake material, and that's what Stewart used to carry, but they don't anymore, but you can get it from Aircraft Proofs. I just like working with it better. It's a little bit looser weave, and the glue goes through, this works a little bit easier. But also they have other products, like the finish tape, and this is real narrow for this, but you get 1/2 inch wide for a regular wing. And I think I wrote down. Well, anyway, if you buy Superflake reinforcing tape for rib stitching, this is, I think now it's up to like $17 a roll for 1/2 inch for 60 yards. Polyfiber will sell you 1/2 inch, 40 yards for right around $100. Quite a difference. So just in that, you know, in things like that, you can save a pile of money. Just look around. Okay. So this one, I have a piece of polycarbonate 2 inches wide, and for a Piper wing, I have it all marked, top and bottom. I just slap it on the wing and make the marks, and then on the bottom and make the marks, and it comes out, they come out, you know, opposite each other, top and bottom of the wing. Otherwise, you will end up sometimes with going in here and coming out here on a wing. With these things, it doesn't make any difference. Great place to keep your needles. Rib stitch cord used to be round and it was more like chalk line. And it left, you know, lumps on the wing, as you know. This is a flat cord, I like it a lot better. Oh, to start with, I'm just going to rib stitch this one piece for you here. Now comes the fun part. Everybody likes to rib stitch, right? How many people have done rib stitching? Yeah. What you probably used, I assume, was the modified seine knot, the FAA approved, polyfiber dope approved. Well, without getting very deep, Doug and Dan knew about the what they called the Beechcraft stagger wing knot, which was different, but it was developed, I think, during World War II, and it was classified information, strangely enough. You know, a tie knot for rib stitching, classified information, but it was. And that's about the time that they released a lot of this information, and Dan knew about it, so he went and found it and brought it back, and they, without getting complicated, Stewart is the first STC that has been brought into being since the FAA let's see, in 1956, the FAA came into being. Previous to that, CAA, and anybody like Polyfiber, all of their stuff is based on these old STCs. They just, based on them, so they can't change much of anything. Well, Stewart developed their own. They went to the FAA and generated their own STC, so they could do a lot of things being a manufacturer. One of the things they did was introduce the modified seam knot, or the Beechcraft stagger ring knot. And now if I can see. Oh, I better do it on this side. On small stuff like this is quite all right. You can do this by yourself, but when you got like a Piper wing to work on, you gotta have help. Now this one's, I'm just gonna, okay, I'm putting in, I don't know which one it is, a square or a granny, whatever they call it. And now, I'm gonna go in on this side, and go under, and just make another half hitch, right? That's all it really is. If you got this laying flat, it's a little easier. One on either side of the knot I made. Like so. Now, bury of knots so they don't stick up. Now, I've just gone down to back up on the other side. Back out again. Now, this looks complicated. I'll do this one quickly and then I'll do another one slowly. Once this comes through like this, you turn it 90 degrees, drop your needle through it. Hang on to this string. Do not let go of this string. You'll be starting all over again. Now, I'm gonna go up here and over, bring this up, pull this string I was holding, pull it tight, then grab the other string, pull that tight, you've done the Beechcraft knot, that's it. So simple. You remember the seam knot, you had to get down there and put your thumb on it and pull on it, and the next thing you know, your thumb was bleeding, miserable. Now, when you watch somebody do that quickly, get it hooked. me think what I'm doing here. If you want somebody to do that quickly, it looks kind of complicated, and believe me, it is not.
There'll be a test afterwards, you all have to do that. Their credit.
You only have to do one. Well, I'm gonna make it simple enough, and let you able to do it. Now, we're right back to where I was before. But what in reality is happening here, if I turn this like so, and drop my needle down through it, and I'm gonna do it this way this time, okay? I'm not gonna do the second step. All I did is tie a knot in it, right? Made half hitch. That's all it is. Now I come back, go through like that, and just tie another knot. I can do it with my fingers. I did it with a needle. That's it. It's just two knots. It's nothing. But by doing it like you do with a needle, it'll, you know, looks like magic, you know, yeah, it's all done. But it's so simple. And, I love doing that. I'm not gonna do any more of it. I'll finish it at home. Let's see. Next thing, once the rib stitching is done, the next thing is the tape. Let's see. No, I can't do that till I'm gonna screw myself up. Yeah. I was gonna finish that, but I don't wanna waste your time spinning that. Anyway, with the tape, you'll take the brush, lay some EcoBond on here. This is where people often like to cut it with just a little bit of water, not much. Makes it flow better. You want it to go right into the fabric. And then take your piece of fabric, in my case I go around and right around like that, lay the fabric in it, and then take your brush, and they say a dry brush, but they don't mean a dry brush, that's what they say in there. Just take your brush that you have already used and just paint it down and push that through. And if you don't have quite enough, get a little more. Make sure it all looks green when you get done, and then wipe it with a blue towel. Once you get that done, you look at it, oop, screwed something up, you can just pull it right up and set it back down, and a little bit more glue, put it down again. Again, try that with dope or with polyfiber. It doesn't work. Once the tapes are on this, and then the tapes around the edges, you know what I'm talking about. The next product that goes on here used to be a brush coat of polyfill. Now, I didn't bring any of that with me, there was no reason to. The important thing is the foam brush. You can buy these any place, and boy, you can buy some crap. Some of them are horrible. This is poly brush that has nothing to do with the poly brush covering, finishing coat. It's just the name of the brush. Poly brush, Gen Manufacturing. And they work beautifully, and they won't shed pieces. Some of them will shed stuff all over your work. But you take this and the EcoFill right out of the can, and you wait a minute, let me back up. First you wash this, they have a product called Eco Clean. You take a rag, clean. I use brand new terry towels and wash it all down, squirt the Eco Clean on, they give you a ratio in the book. Wash it all down, then you take a wet rag and wipe it all down. Used to be, we would then, while it's wet, put the Eco-Fill on. But now, they don't want you to do that anymore. You use the Eco-Fill and you mix it 3-to-1 with water. And that's your first coat going on here, is a coat of Eco-Fill with the same brush. And that seems to sink in and go through better. And you will hear, I think I remember somebody here said something about that this stuff will peel off, the paint will peel off. Remember somebody saying that? And I realized what they were saying. I didn't want to contradict anybody, but with the EcoBond, you put it on wet. You paint on wet fabric, and it sucks it right through. If you don't, it just lays on top of the fabric, just like that drop I dropped on there. And I can very well imagine that eventually somewhere down the road, right circumstances, that could peel off. But if you put it on wet, like you're supposed to, by the book, I can't imagine it ever coming loose. But anyway, 1 coat of EcoBonds, 3-to-1 of water, and then Eco-Fill on top of that, and that 2 coats. You're gonna have some little pimples and dust, so on and so forth. Little red Scotch-Brite works very well. Clean that stuff off. And then you're gonna spray a couple of coats of Eco-Fill and let that dry, sand it a little, get it. And by the way, no wet sanding, ever. It's dry sanding with 320 grit open coat sandpaper. It works very well. And all I use is a little piece of Scotch-Brite, put around my sandpaper and sand with it. And it'll take all the pimples and everything off. You'll put on 3 cross coats of Eco-Fill. That blocks the sun. And on top of that, I use a product called Eco Prime that they put out. The Eco-Fill, sanding that is kind of like trying to sand a tire. You know, it just doesn't sand well. You'll get it down pretty good. But then you put on a couple coats of the Eco Prime, and that comes in, it's a kind of just a little bit off white, can't remember what they call it. And you sand out with that 320, and I'm telling you, it can be pimply and rough, and just like that, blow it off, and it's like glass. It's like sanding chalk. It's beautiful. And then you'll end up with about probably 3 coats of finish, 1 very light tack coat, you hardly see it going on. Second one, you'll start to see color. Third one, you keep cranking your gun up just a little bit. You start out with, I'm using the DeVilbiss Finish Line 3 gun with 1.3 tip. And I crank it out about 3/4 of a turn. Hold on, 1 turn, another coat. Up to 7/8, another coat, and then I run it out to an inch, a turn and a quarter, and slow down a little bit and lay it on. You don't want to get too heavy, but lay it on and it'll come out pretty nice. If you're putting on black, a couple coats will do it. If you're putting on Cub Yellow, you may need more. It's, sometimes 4 light coats won't cover with Cub Yellow. Yellow is a miserable color to paint.
Not if it's over white. It paints really well over white.
Pardon?
It paints on really well over white. You gotta
Over
have
white,
white
yeah.
under yellow.
Yeah, put a coat, well, that's another reason for why I like the Eco Prime. See, it's Eco-Fill is a dark gray
Yeah,
color.
that won't work.
And, but the Eco Prime going on top of that
Right.
is a, I can't remember the, smoke gray, they call it. But boy, it's hardly that, it's almost white. And that is real nice, that's what I'd like to paint over. For whatever it's worth, a quart of the finish Eco Poly covers about 75 square feet. I use a viscosity cup. They're making a lot of improvements of the paint as they go along. It's getting to the point that it almost sprays like car paint now. Back when I first started using it, boy, it was touchy. You go over something, whoop, missed a little spot, go back and hit it, be on the floor. It was very, very sensitive, but now it's a lot better. But I still use a viscosity cup, 22 to 24 seconds, sprays well. 22 to 25 pounds of pressure at the gun, and it will spray real well for you. Tack rags, waterborne tack rags, there's a difference. You use tack rags for oil-based paint or something, or any other, and the stuff won't stick to it. So they have special tack rags for waterborne paint, probably have at the auto supply, Sherwin-Williams or whatever. I use a blanket method. Years ago, I tried an envelope, it didn't fit. And I had a mess before I got all done. Besides, you had these streaks around the wing like this that I didn't like, because you could never make them line up where you wanted them to. They're always off a little. So, but back then, the fabric was nowhere near as wide. I can't remember the width. Do you?
4 foot maybe. 4 foot maybe.
Yeah, not much more than that. Yeah. Now, it's,
72, you could buy
yeah,
it.
70 or 72 inches wide now. So that'll cover a paper wing all the way down one side. And it makes it so much simpler and a much nicer job. Turbine guns are out. Great call on those. They put out too much heat. And I even years ago, that's what I was using with polyfiber or whatever. Before, well, I started with this, I think in 2003, so before that I was using a Graco gun. And take a roll of garden hose and roll it up in a wash tub full of water to run the air through for it to get the air cooled down, but it still didn't work. So you really need a good top load HVLP gun. And make sure your air system is perfectly clean. If you've got a hose that you have used, you know, with a oil injecting thing, you know, for your die grinders or stuff like that, don't use it. Buy yourself. If you're gonna paint with this stuff, just go buy yourself a hose. And best to use the 3/4 inch hose. It takes a lot of air. I think it takes something like 13 cubic feet per minute at 80 or something like that to run an HVLP gun, because the air runs all the time. So.
You're saying don't use an HVLP gun then?
Pardon?
You're saying don't use an HVLP gun?
No, don't use a turbine gun. I use an HVLP, I should have brought it with me.
Okay.
It's a top load, DeVilbiss finish line. I like it a lot. I got mine from Spray Gun Depot or something. And, but the HVLPs, that's the gun to use. But just the ones with the turbine, you know, what's it, Graco, what's the?
Yeah, Graco. Graco.
Yeah, well, there's
Yeah.
another one I think more popular, but I had a Graco. But, it's just too hot by the time it comes out. The paint is starting to dry before it hits fabric. Yeah. Okay. Mixing the Eco Poly, the finish coat, it's 4 to 1 to 1. 4 parts paint, 1 part catalyst, 1 part water. Be gentle with the water. You all mix concrete and that last little cup of water turns it to soup. It'll do the same thing with this. So that's why I use viscosity cup. And, 4 to 1 to 1, and I leave just a little bit of water back in the cup, see how it works. And if I need it, I'll dump that in. But, and I use a digital scale, gram scale they call them or whatever, and weigh the materials in the cup. And that way you're sure you get it about as close as you can. But, I think that's all, unless somebody has some questions.
How many wings have you recovered in fuselages?
Fuselages, I covered fuselages for, Schweitzer gliders, some 25-foot long, trainer gliders. I did, over the last few years, I've done 35 or 40 of those fuselages and tail feathers. But then like PA-12 and Mark's Taylor Craft and my Tri-Pacer and those and that, probably another at least 15 complete airplanes. And a lot of odds and ends here and there that somebody needed a, had one guy with an Aranca hooked onto his Aranca with a garden tractor, went into the hangar, clipped the wing, bent it, brought it down to me. I managed to play and straighten it out. I got it back, so that was in good shape. That was just a repair project. John Kellogg. And about 6 months later, he called and he said, Larry, this is really, really embarrassing. Remember the wingtip you repaired? Yeah. Think you could do that again? so that kind of thing I end up with. But, any questions from anybody? Good to go.
So, that tail feather start to finish, how much time? Basically, I mean.
Wow.
If you're just starting out,
Boy. A whole set of tail feathers?
just that one tail feather.
Oh, this unit right here?
Yeah, that unit right there, what would that take? For a.
Part of the problem
novice?
is waiting for it to dry. And that's one of the reasons you don't see this used much commercially. Because you can't have a man standing around waiting for something to dry, but if you're doing it yourself, and you're working on fuselage over here, and you come over and you put some fabric on here, and you go back and work on the fuselage, come back over to dry, flop it over, put the other on. Remember, you stand up with almost as much time in a set of tail feathers for the gliders as I did in the fuselage. But I would certainly think that I could have a tail feather done and ready for finish, certainly in less than 8 hours. If that gives you anything.
Okay, that's fine, yeah.
It's, I don't pay that much attention.
That's a good answer.
Yeah,
You know. Anybody else, have you got thoughts about that? Make sense? And, I figure a wing takes you about 40 hours, a Piper wing. But 8 hours of that's roof stitching.
Yeah.
You know, and, but it goes fairly fast. And as I say, you don't have to be so, with polyfiber and such, man, when you put that stuff on, it's gotta be where you want it right now. And there's no, you know, fiddling around and putting it where you want it, or ripping it up and starting over again. You can't do that. With this, you can take a little time and do that.
The
And in
biggest thing
reality,
is you
save
don't
a
have that
lot.
mask on your face all day.
Looking
Don't
around.
need that with
That's
that
huge,
strike.
that's huge.
All those 35 or 40 fuselages that I did in my basement in the house. And in no time I was working down there, my wife ever know that I had anything to do with paint.
Right.
You know, and she's down there helping me a lot and such. It's just, you can do it in your living room.
That,
Don't get
that
it on the
alone
carpet.
makes the product worthwhile, it really does.
Pardon?
Yeah. That alone makes the product worthwhile over chemical-based
Yeah.
stuff.
It does for me.
And your lungs.
Yeah, but I got a problem. And, smoked until 1982.
Right.
Got some stuff in the bottom because of that, and then dope and poly and da-da-da.
Right.
I got to know Doug and Dan Stewart really well, and their Stewart System, by the way, they'll be, Stewart System will be here at Sun and Fun. But it's, Andy Humphrey now owns the product. Stewart's retired, sold out, and he's in Ohio, so they're closer to us than Washington was. I lost that, Mark, where was I going?
Closer in Ohio?
Yeah, I didn't,
They're in Sun and Fun.
nothing very important.
They were at Sun and Fun. They're coming to Sun and Fun.
Yeah, they'll be down there if you know, they will have a program, they will be, demonstrating how to do the process. And I don't know how they do it anymore. One time when Dan and Doug did it, they would take a group in there and have you do a piece. And I had some things I wanted to bring with me that I didn't, I guess. There's one, rip that apart. There.
So like anything else, probably what you should do, if you've never done this before, is do just some practice layout.
Yeah.
On some other stuff first.